So what's going on? We got the new Ultra Racing front strut bar. Gonna get it installed. But first things first, since we learned at the end of last video, we're gonna have to do something about these holes to mount. So I'm gonna have to take a look underneath and see what's going on and see how I can mount those properly. So I'm gonna get the car on jack stands. All right, so car's jacked up, took the wheels off. One thing I always forget to tell you guys when I got the wheels off, but I got these are from Acer Racing, and they're titanium lug bolts. Really cool product, super light. When I compared them to the regular steel, they're about half the weight, all combined. So a little bit of unsprung weight saved, which is good, and they are pretty resistant to corrosion. Even if they ever did build up any corrosion, you can just literally wipe it off. It's aerospace grade titanium, so really quality product, and every once in a while they have some really cool flash sales, and you can save a ton of money on those. So just want to show you guys that real quick. I always forget whenever I'm doing work, but all right, so let's take a look. Might need to get the light up in here. So just from looking, I can tell already that I'm gonna have to remove these plastic shields. So let me do that and then we'll get back to it. All right, so I ended up taking off the whole splash shield just to see if I could get a look up in there, and yeah, you guys, it was no use. Even right behind that rubber splash shield, you still can't get to enough of it to actually put anything up in there. So yeah, I found this big mess, so I'm gonna clean it up for now, and besides that, I'll have to try to think of another idea. All right, so I wanted to update you guys with the final kind of look at the installation. So what I ended up doing, against my original idea, but I ended up using a tap to thread after I drilled out the holes underneath here, and this is a 3/8/16 bolt. And then for the back one, I basically just used a file, as you guys saw in the other clip, to get this into the right position, and then just mounted it on the regular ground wire holder. I did have to cut that a little bit. I still haven't put the silicone on there like I would like to, but it's looking fine right now. And then here's the other side, same thing, 3/8/16 bolt, and didn't have to use a washer or anything because it already has one kind of built onto it. And then same thing with the back ground wire. And for the clearance in the middle, this is kind of a big deal, which I want to talk about. So you guys know that I have the Creative Steel polyurethane engine mounts. So my engine really doesn't flex like much at all anymore. But if you were to have this much clearance, which is pretty much nothing, like maybe 1/4 of an inch at most, if you were to have this much clearance with stock motor mounts, I'm pretty sure you'd be having issues of this thing bumping on this side. And I don't know if you did that enough times, I'm sure either this is gonna flex or this is gonna be the point that flexes instead, and it could try to pull it out of place. So just something to think about. I did have the idea of like trying to use a hammer and maybe reshape this a little bit to give it a little bit of an arc, or my other idea was to basically cut it at one of these spots and then use another piece of metal and kind of weld this on top of that, so it'd make kind of an L shape, and that way it'd give it a little more clearance above the engine bay. So yeah, there's just that. And then the other thing is, I did end up cutting these to make way. I actually was looking at the CLK63, and from factory it actually has the rubber things like this, so I figured I was okay to do that. I wasn't going to let anything into the engine bay. It still makes a lot of contact with the hood. So I went ahead and cut those. And I kept those extra pieces just in case I want to put those back. Otherwise, part numbers are on these little rubber things, and they're not expensive, so it's not really a big deal. And then same thing with this. Like, if I ever took it off and I wanted to, you know, get rid of this because it has the cut in it now, those are on every, you know, C-Class and CLK and everything. So I think I would be okay finding another one. But yeah, that is it. Installed. I'll take you guys for a little drive right now and show you guys how it is, or just my thoughts on it. And then I do have actually one more strut brace coming in. Should be here in about 15 days or so. And it's for another spot in the rear. So I'll talk about that a little bit as well. Alright, so we're back in the C55. Just showed you guys how it looks after the finished install. On my way to the grocery store right now because I recently had my first child. My son was born on August 23rd, so apologies for the kind of wait in time between the last video and this one, but as you guys can probably predict, I was a little bit busy. Anyways, as far as the feel of both of the strut tower bars after install, with the rear alone, I already felt just like I don't know, it's almost a little more smooth because the chassis is staying more firm. And then it just feels a little more planted, and I could tell even when like backing out of the driveway and going off a little speed bump type thing, you don't hear the kind of creaking that I was hearing prior to that, so I know everything's kind of staying a little more solid. And then that, especially when I put the front one on, that was the case where I would go over the slant up to our driveway and go over that kind of little hump. And normally when I would go over that, you know, one wheel at a time, because I'm coming at it from an angle, you know, I would hear some creaks in the front, but the front really stiffened up. I don't hear anything after that. The back I can still hear a tiny bit. And then as far as handling, it just feels like turn-in feels sharper. The steering wheel just feels sharper in general, a little quicker to respond, and it just feels more rigid, I guess is the easiest way to put it. It's not like a crazy difference, but it's definitely noticeable, and I feel like it's enough to warrant like installing them and purchasing them. I would definitely do it again if I had the choice. And I think after I put that last one in, I'll roll up the window just in case you guys are getting a little too much wind. But I think after I install that second one in the rear, because I do want the rear to be stiffer than the front, I think that will be like a perfect combination. So basically Ultra Racing makes one for the W209 for the rear and the W203. And when I ordered originally for the W203 in the rear, because I figured that would be correct for the C55, because it is a W203 from the back of basically the front windshield and a W209 in front, I figured that would be the correct one to get. However, they actually changed the part numbers, so the picture was still the same for the W203 to mount. It kind of mounts in between the back seat. I'll show you guys once we're back in there for the next video, but or I'll pop a picture up right now. So it mounts behind the back seat, and the one for the W203 that they updated mounts like the one we installed on top of the actual struts. So I ordered the one that's for the W209 that was pictured for the W203 when I ordered that. I know that's confusing, but I ordered that one to basically combo with the one that does mount to the struts already. So I feel like that will give a lot of rigidity to the back, because I do want the back to be stiffened up more so than the front. So that's kind of the thoughts so far on that. I'll keep this not too long, because I know the rest of the video has plenty of clips in there. But yeah, I'm happy with it. I think they work really well. As far as the installation goes, the front one, I wasn't exactly happy about the way it's designed, but I also know there's not really a way around it, because W209s and W203s just don't have the mounting placement from factory for a strut tower bar, unless it's a black series. So you'd have to come up with something, either drill or weld or do something, regardless of the model, if it's of those two chassis. So can't complain too much about it. I went back and forth about what I wanted to do. I had all this different hardware that I purchased, and I was gonna weld something on top of the bolt holes, but I wanted it to be as clean as possible, and be able to be undone and put those rubber caps on and basically conceal it if I didn't want to have that anymore. So I chose not to weld. The only other thing I might do differently is if I don't feel like this is holding well, which I think it is, but if I don't feel like it is, then I will basically weld in a hollowed out thread piece into the thread that I basically tapped already. So I could weld that down into the circle, and that would just give a little bit extra strength. So I could use a hollow 3/8/16 thread, put it in there, weld around it, which would still be underneath the surface, so you wouldn't see the welds if I put that rubber cap back on. And then I could use a smaller bolt that fits inside of that 3/8/16 hollow thread. So I'll see how it goes moving forward. And then the other thing I was planning on doing possibly is just putting some other posts, like maybe welding a post on each side for the ground wires, just so I don't have to worry about the ground wires being on that post that it's mounted to, simply because every time you take those grounds off, most likely you're going to reset the battery, especially the battery one on the battery side. You're probably going to reset the battery every time you take that post off, because that's grounding the battery to the chassis. So to avoid that, every time I needed to take the strut bar off, it would just be a lot easier to put a post onto the strut tower, and that way you just don't have to worry about that. So that's about it. I'll keep it somewhat short for you guys. I do have some plans for upcoming things as we get into fall and winter. I did just have a baby, so my wife had a baby, we had a baby, so I'll be a little busy, and I'm also starting the school year for teaching in a few days, so I will be busy. And we also bought a condo, so I will be busy, but I do have some things that I want to get done on the car. A few like small maintenance items as I go into winter. Like I want to, before it gets cold, I want to replace the battery, because I when it got really cold last year, I was having some hard starts or hard kind of cranks before it would start. It would just kind of click really hard, but wouldn't turn over the first time I would turn the key, and then the second time it would always start. But I just feel like maybe this battery that's in there right now doesn't have enough cold cranking amps for when it does get really cold. Besides that, it works absolutely fine. But I want to do that. I need to put in my voltage regulator, the new one that I've had for a while. I just haven't put it in yet. and then I want to figure out plans to do the subframe bushings and differential bushing. And as far as that goes, I tried to reach out to Creative Steel, and thank you guys to Creative Steel for trying to help me out. We got in touch about it, and I basically told them I'll send you all the stock parts so you guys can research and maybe develop something out of them. So I sent them all of the subframe bushings for the C55 and the differential bushings, but it just wasn't working out for them. They were hoping that it was going to be the same as I think the CLK55 or the CLK63, and they were going to be able to fab up, you know, basically two parts for one. And they basically offered, you know, if they did develop them, they basically offered them at no cost for me. So big shout out to you guys for even attempting. Unfortunately, the parts were just too different to kind of make sense of doing, since the C55 is kind of a rarity, and you know, it'd be tough for them to spend all that you know, funds for R&D for a part that, you know, in reality they're not going to sell very many of them, just because it's not, you know, it's not a common car. So, but thank you guys for trying. I think I'm going to do kind of a little bit of hacking on the stock ones. I'm going to try to fill them with polyurethane, and then I may try to make a mold for the differential bushing to make one out of polyurethane as well. So we'll see. I think I should be able to do it. It shouldn't be too tricky, but we'll get there when we get there. But I definitely want to do that this winter, because I just feel like that's been like my most anticipated change to this car after I've done the engine mounts and the transmission mounts, is to do the subframe and the differential bushings, because I feel like in combination with those two things in the front, that'll just make such a world of difference. So I really want to get those done. That's going to be kind of my main priority as far as modification going into fall and winter. And as far as the battery and the voltage regulator, whenever I get a chance to get those done, then, you know, I'll of course record and give you guys some advice on those. H-Now Automotive, who has a C55 channel as well, he did a video on the voltage regulator. So if you do get into trouble in the meantime, go check out his video. I figured I would just record it anyways, just so there's more than one source out there. It doesn't hurt. But he already has a great video on it, so if you guys need, go check it out, and go check out his channel in general. His C55 is pretty dope. He's got a lot of cool mods on it. Besides that, I've been talking for too long. I need to go into the grocery store and get the supplies for the baby and the wife. But hope you guys have been doing well, and stay tuned as always, and see you guys next time. Thank you.